Thanks a lot for joining us again. It's still the Friday edition of TVC Breakfast, and we're delighted you can join us again for the second half of the program. It's also very fitting at this time now to bring in our own Sam Omashe, who's here, no doubt, with the Super Sam effect. Welcome. How have you been? Of course, you know you are a sight for sore eyes. Anytime. Welcome. Compliments of the season. How have you been holding up? Absolutely. Right. And of course, let's now head on into the next leg of our discussions, and that's about Gerald Mamman Musa. He's a Hausa-speaking Nigerian who is currently a communications professor, but that's not all. Now, he has now been ordained as the first Hausa bishop of the diocese of Kastina, Northwestern Nigeria. And Bishop Gerald Musa appreciated his late catechist-father for instilling in him the passion for the Catholic faith. And he revealed that his motivation was fully sponsored by his father, who he says gave him the realization concerning the importance of the Eucharist as a catechist, and that he developed his interest in the translation of sacred texts, spiritual books, and all others pertaining to the religion. And according to Bishop Musa, the two dominant values he learned from his father are perseverance and commitment. Well, the bishop joins us now. Bishop Gerald Mamman Musa joins us from our Abuja studio. As we have said, and as we have been sharing from this side, he's the first bishop of the new Catholic Diocese of Katsina State. Bishop Musa, thank you very much for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Congratulations on your ordination. What does this mean to you and indeed the church?
Thank you very much.
Carry on. What does this feat mean for you and indeed the church that you will, of course, be progressing on to serve?
Well, this means a lot to me and to the church to the Catholic Church in general, and to the Catholic Church in the Diocese of Kastina. It gives us the privilege to reach out to people, to be closer to the people in terms of preaching the gospel and being witnesses of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Well, Bishop, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The last time we spoke, we called you Monsignor, and you were Bishop-elect. Now that you are Bishop-elect, there are a number of questions that will go through the minds of people. How come, as a Hausa man in a predominantly Muslim environment, that you are not only a bishop, you are a Christian, and so on? Could you tell us, how did that happen? Because not many people can reconcile the environment with your identity.
Well, I'm sure many people will be intrigued with the fact that a man from Hausa origin is a Christian, a Catholic priest, and now a Catholic bishop. First, I will attribute that to the grace of God. And I'll also attribute that to the missionary endeavors that began sometime in the 1930s. Beginning with the mission in Argungu, and then expanding to other parts of the old Sokoto diocese, which includes Sokoto, Zamfara, and Katsina states. I also want to attribute that to my parents, who passed on the Catholic faith I also want to attribute that to my many teachers in the school who taught me the way to the faith.
Well, as a follow-up to that, you know, when the missionaries came in those years, it was not easy for them to get their proselytizing done in that environment that was also predominantly Muslim, because we know that the big swath of the north had, you know, fallen under the control of the caliphate, especially after the Uthman Dan Fodio revolution of 1804. It was a religion of the minority, official minority, but eventually it took over the north. And when they came that time, there were some stories about resistance, about your father, your grandfather, and so on, and your mother, what they went through before, when they became Christians. Can you take us through those?
Okay, like it is in different parts of the world, once you belong to a religion that is in the minority, it is expected that you be treated differently. My parents, and particularly my father, converted at about the age of 12 from Islam to Christianity. And since then, he has held on to the faith very strongly. Some parts of his family accepted him, but some parts of the family looked at him differently. And generally, while he was accepted by many, he also suffered some kind of discrimination in his place of work.
Quite interesting experience, and it's also very good to have a peek into your own self, because, you know, reading your profile, very robust, the level of education and how much you've studied to becoming an attaining the Episcopal ordination. Could you talk to us about your own personal challenges, you know, walking through the challenges and then becoming triumphant? The unique challenges and triumphants you experience as a first Hausa-speaking Catholic bishop in that multi-ethnic, multicultural society where you are?
Okay, I think, growing up, I would say that I grew up in a multicultural or in a multi-religious environment where we had Christianity, we had Islam, and we had also, a few people who practice the traditional religion. But I would say that in every family, particularly in the southern part of Kastina State, places like Malumfashi in Kastina State where I grew up, and then the surrounding local governments such as Afur local government, such as Funtua local government, where we have a good number of Christians. There are Christians, there are people who come, there are families that have people who practice these different religions. In one family, you may find some Christians, some Muslims, and maybe a few people who are still traditionalists. So in a society like that, sometimes it is difficult to find conflict as in religious discrimination. But in the generality of the society, and especially in the wider society, sometimes we experience that kind of discrimination, especially in terms of employment, in terms of admission, and then in other areas. But generally, we have had a very good, or we are having a very good relationship with those who belong to other religions, such as traditionalists, and then our Muslim brothers and sisters.
All right, Bishop Musa, let's put you on a hold. We will return to continue this discussion with you. We'll take a break and return. Please stay with us. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we've still got Bishop Gerald Musa, the first Hausa bishop in Nigeria, who is now the first bishop of the new Catholic diocese of Kastina State. Thank you very much for holding on, Bishop Musa. Sam?
Yes, I want to take you back to your father. And, your father dropped out of school and also had some problems with the place of work. Can you give us details about what happened and how that helped him in his journey to become a Catholic and a Christian?
Okay. So, like I said, the missionaries came to Argungu in the 1930s, and I think it was precisely in 1934. And when they came, after some years, the missionary enterprise in Argungu closed down. But before then, they had established a mission school. And there were a few people or children who were attracted to the school. After some years, the school closed down. And it was at this stage that my father dropped from school. Then after some years, these missionaries shifted to Gusau in Zamfara State. When they shifted to Gusau in Zamfara State, they invited my father from Argungu to come down and to continue with his school. It was in Gusau that he continued with his school, and then later went to the famous St. Enda's College, which later became Basawa Teachers College in Zaria, which was specifically for the training of teachers. So I think within this period of time, his interaction with the missionaries strengthened and consolidated his faith. And it was this faith that he passed on to us, his children. There are 8 of us in the family, 4 boys and 4 girls, and all of us still remain strong in the Christian faith and in the Catholic tradition.
Right, and how did that, experience, the story of the perseverance of your father, how did it, resonate with you, so much so that, here you are, you've reached this height in ministry?
Well, I think the faith of my parents, resonated with me so much. Interestingly, my father married my mother, who comes from Shandam. Remember that Shandam is in Plateau State, and in the north, the Christianity came through Shandam over 100 years ago through the Society of Missionaries in Africa, popularly known as SMA Fathers and Brothers. So it was when they came to Shandam that they trained catechists to go to other parts of the north, particularly the northwest. My grandfather, who happens to be one of those children, my maternal grandfather, who happened to be one of those trained, from this part of Nigeria or from this part of the north, was among those that was sent to the northwest. And he found himself in Zuru, where he taught people and where he taught in the schools. He taught catechism as well as the secular education. But I would say generally that the conviction of my parents, my father, Male Emmanuel Musa, and then my mother, Mrs. Christiana Asebe Kangtun, before she was married, and then later on, Christiana Asebe Musa, impacted very strongly on me. Seeing their conviction, their participation in the faith, the morning prayers that we say as a family, was something that deeply influenced our faith as a family. And in the family, all of us have continued very strongly in the faith. So the faith of our parents has something to do with our own faith today. The faith of our parents resonated so much in us that today we continue to carry on with the Christian faith in the Catholic tradition.
Well, still talking about the uniqueness of the place where, or the society where you're able to attain this spiritual elevation. How do you see your position contributing to that religious diversity and dialogue in Nigeria and beyond? And then, most importantly, how do you think, or what role does the Hausa Catholic community or Catholic community play in fostering religious diversity, religious dialogue, to ensuring that there is peaceful coexistence in the society, especially when, especially in the face of adversity?
Yes, I think interreligious dialogue is something that the Catholic Church takes very seriously all over the world, because the Church exists in the midst of other people. As Christians and as Catholics, we normally encourage our people to engage with the society, to develop authentic relationship with people of other faith. We encourage dialogue, interreligious dialogue at different levels. We have interreligious dialogue that we call the dialogue of life, which is a daily interaction between people in the marketplaces, in the schools, and in the rest of the different endeavors of life. We also have the dialogue of theological understanding, or dialogue that exists between theological experts, and that is among scholars. And this kind of dialogue is the dialogue it's a dialogue where we do not argue so much about our faith or about our doctrines, but it's a dialogue where we talk about the different concepts of life, such as death, such as prophets, such as mysticism, and the rest. And then we also have what is referred to as the dialogue of action. And the dialogue of action is that form of dialogue whereby with other members of other faith, we participate or cooperate or join hands together in development projects or in the issues of development, justice, and peace. Now, we also have a dialogue of spirituality or a dialogue of prayer, whereby in some places and in some situations where the society or the community face, challenge. I've seen in some situations in some parts of the north where there is drought, for example, where there are days and weeks without rain and the crops are dying. We see Christians and Muslims gathering to pray together because there is a common problem. There are situations like that. So we try as much as possible to encourage people to engage in the dialogue of life, to engage in the dialogue of action, to engage in the dialogue of spirituality, and to engage in the dialogue of theological discourse.
Right. Now, you grew up in Malumfashi. Can you tell us about the transition from Christian to priesthood? And by that, I also want you to talk about your time in the primary school, your interaction with your people, because you were in a school in which predominantly Muslim students, and you said that in that school everything went very well, but then you transited from being in the secular environment into an episcopal direction. Can you track that transition and what you went through?
Okay. I think growing up in Malumfashi was one of the best things that have happened to me. Growing up in Malumfashi in Kastina State gave me the opportunity to go through a public primary school. And this public primary school is known as Tenor Primary School. It is still in existence. Each time I pass through the school, I'm happy that I was able to go through this school. And in that school, of course, you would not know that there's a difference between Christians and Muslims, except in the moment when it comes to teaching of religion. Normally, we as Christians during classes will leave the class and then go to our CRK. That's Christian religious knowledge. And then leave the Muslims in class, in the larger class, to attend to their classes of faith, that is Islamic religious knowledge, which is IRK. So, but generally, on football fields, we played together. In the class, we interacted together. We interacted so much. And then, in terms of differences, you would not know much differences. Among the teachers we had teachers from different parts of the country. Our head teacher at that time was a man called David Ohehe, who happens to come from Edo State precisely. My class teacher was Mrs. Ido. And then we had other teachers whose origin is from Malumfashi in Kastina State. But what I'm trying to establish is that we had teachers from different parts of the country. And then we also had students or pupils from different parts of the country. Then at weekends, you know, as Catholics, we went for practice, altar servers practice. So I began as an altar server in the church called St. Vincent Ferrer Church. St. Vincent Ferrer Church was run by the Dominicans. And the Dominicans had a very big influence in my life today. So at weekends, we were engaged in parish activities. But not only weekend, but also during the weekday. We also engaged in what is called catechism, which is faith formation. So all this strengthened my faith. And what is more, after my primary school in Tuno Primary School, I went to St. Joseph's Minor Seminary in Zaria. And that also consolidated my faith. And there I went, from there to Makurdi, St. Thomas Aquinas Major Seminary in Makurdi, and then for philosophy, and then later to St. Augustine's Major Seminary in Jos. So all this is a summary of my journey in the faith.
One is this this issue of is it Maguzawa, where they call people who means run away in the north. Were you ever called that? And how do you refer to that phenomenon? And secondly, what is your attitude towards the whole concept of Christian radicalism? I mean, I'm referring to the movement started by Gustavo Guterres.
Okay. So the concept of Maguzawa comes literally from the word Bamaguji. Bamaguji is the singular term that is used for Maguzawa. Maguzawa is a generic term that is used for people who have stuck, who never left their traditional religion. There are different understandings, there are different concepts and ideas about the word Bamaguji or Maguzawa. A man who is a Bamaguji is somebody who, you know, some people will say is that person who remains as a traditionalist. And then a Bamaguza, which is the feminine version, is someone who has stuck to the traditional religion. But again, there are some people who refer to Maguzawa as the original Hausa people who have maintained not only their faith, but their tradition through the years. So, for those who refer to Maguzawa as those who have run away from Islam, we will say that everybody is a Bamaguji, because generally in Nigeria and in many other African traditions, we were not originally Christians, we were not originally Muslims. Almost everyone who had Christianized or anyone who was Islamized came from the traditional religion. If it is not directly from us, then our ancestors left their traditional religion and then came to the new religions that we have today as Christianity and Islam. So, if the term Bamaguje or Maguzawa means those who have left their traditional religion, or those who have run away from their traditional religion, from Islam or Christianity. That means that everyone is a Bamaguje, because we have all run away from our traditional religion.
Allow me to butt in, and I want you to quickly react to, because we're pressed for time, I want you to quickly react to the news that is rife, or news that is making the rounds as regards the Pope asking or saying that there can be blessing for same-sex marriage. And I know that Nigerian bishops, Catholic bishops, reject the blessing for same-sex marriage. How do you weigh in on this? Because I know that there are about at least 6 different verses in the Bible that speaks to the issue of same-sex marriage. Could you quickly expatiate on this?
Okay, I think the whole issue of same-sex marriage has generated a whole lot of debate, or there has been an intensity of the debate since last Monday. The document coming from the Pope is very explicit, it's very clear about same-sex marriage. That document does not accept same-sex marriage. That document does not tolerate same-sex marriage. That document does not approve of same-sex marriage. But we have all kinds of interpretations. There are many who have not read that document, and they have jumped into all kinds of interpretation. What the Pope says is that everyone can be blessed. The church consists of saints and sinners. We cannot bless some and not bless others. The document says that we cannot give formal blessing to those who are in same-sex union, but we can bless them generally as we bless every other person.
All right.
The mission and purpose of the church is the salvation of all, and everyone is entitled to blessing. But the church does not in any way approve of same-sex union or marriage.
All right, that will be a fine place to rest our conversation. Bishop Gerald Mamman Musa, we thank you very much for speaking with us on TVC News. Once again, a big congratulations to you for reaching this height in ministry, and we hope that your ministry will be associated with so much impact, being the first Hausa bishop in Nigeria. Thanks again for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much.